Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Varava Girivana Dari Gopijana Varava Jaya Gopijana Varava Girivana Dari Gopijana Varava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Vara Balaba Girivana Dari Jaya Gopi Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivana Dari Gopi Jana Vallabha Yasodanandana Pradana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivana Dari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivana Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivana Dari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivana Yasodanandana Pradana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jayam Visipad Paramahansa Previjakachaya Asatya Sadashishimat. His Divine Grace, the A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Anantakoti Vaishnava Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Iskand Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Prem Sikho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Giradhar Sivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Ki Jai, Shri Maya Pranag Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai, Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi, all glory some devotees, all glory some devotees, all glory some devotees, all glory, Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This morning reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 10, Text number 11. Jivan Mritvatvam Niyamena Rajan Adyantavad Yad Vikritasya Justam Swasvamya Bhavo Dhruva Idya Yatra Tarhi Ujjate Sao Vidhikritya Yogaha Jivan Mritatvam Niyamena Rajan Adyantavadyan Vikritasya Dristam Swasvamya Bhavo Dhruva Idya Yatra Tayuchyate Savirikritya Yogaha Jivan Mritadvang Niyamena Rajan Adyantavadyan Vikritasya Justam Swasvamya Bhavo Dhruva Idya Yatra Tayuchyate Savirikritya Yogaha Jivan Mritadvang Niyamena Rajan Adyantavadyan Vikritasya Justam Samshamya Bhavo Dhruva Idya Yatra Tayuchyate Savirikritya Yogaha Jivan Mritadvang Niyamena Rajan Adyantavadyan Vikritasya Justam Swasvamya Bhavo Dhruva Idya Yatra Tayuchyate Savirikritya Yogaha. Anybody else? Jiva Mritatvam, the quality of being dead while living. Niyamena, by the laws of nature. Rajan, O king. Adi Antavat, everything material has a beginning and an end. Nyat, because Vikritasya, of things that are transformed, such as the body. Dristam is seen. Swashamya bhava, the condition of servanthood and master. Dhruvaha, unchangeable. Idya, O you who are worshipable. Yatra, wherein. Tarhi, then. Uchyate, it is said. Asau, that. Vidikritya yoga, fitness of order and duty. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki. My dear King, you have unnecessarily accused me of being dead, though alive. In this regard, I can only say that this is the case everywhere, because everything material has its beginning and end. As far as you're thinking that you are the king and master and are thus trying to order me, this is also incorrect, because these positions are temporary. Today, you are a king, and I am your servant, but tomorrow the position may be changed, and you may be my servant, and I your master. These are temporary circumstances created by providence. Purport. The bodily conception is the basic principle of suffering in material existence. In Kali-yuga especially, people are so uneducated that they cannot even understand that the body is changed at every moment and that the ultimate change is called death. In this life, one may be a king, and in the next life, one may be a dog, according to karma. The spirit soul is in a deep slumber caused by the force of material nature, and he is put in one type of condition and again changed into another type. Without self-realization and knowledge, conditional life continues, and one falsely claims himself a king, a servant, a cat, or a dog. These are simply different transformations brought about by the supreme arrangement. One should not be misled by such temporary bodily conceptions. Actually, no one is master within the material world, for everyone is under the control of material nature, which is under the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the ultimate master, as explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Ekala Ishvara Krishna Arvasvabhitya. The only master is Krishna, and everyone else is but his servant. Forgetfulness of our relationship with the Supreme Lord brings about our suffering in the material world. Om Jnanatamandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksham Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Mukham Krutavachalam Pangundam Haitagrim Yat Kripa Taraham Bande Shugurum Dinataranam Banchakapatubhyascha Kripasundubhye Vichapatitanam Pavanevya Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. This is like a subtle slap in the face of the king. Well, he didn't physically do it. Yeah. It was a subtle slap in the face. Pretty good slap, too. Because he was confirmed. He was in big illusion, in this bodily conception of life. And he accused the Jad Bharat of being dead, although alive. There's a very nice verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, one of my favorites. Neha yat karma dharmaya navi ragaya kalpate natirtha parasevaya jivan api matohisa. That if one's work does not bring one to dharma, what does dharma mean? No, dharma. Our nature. Our nature. Our nature. Right? Dharma. Like Prabhupada used to say how the nature of water, it's wet. Nature of fire, it's hot. Nature of the soul is to serve. To serve Krishna. So if one's work doesn't bring one to dharma, if one's dharma doesn't bring one to renunciation, and if one's renunciation does not bring one to devotional service, one is considered to be dead, although breathing. So the king is accusing him of being dead, but actually it's just the opposite. The king was dead because he didn't know who he was, nor was he engaged in devotional service. But Jad Bharat, he was a self-realized soul, pure devotee, absorbed, thinking of Krishna. So this is also in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, what is night for all beings is daytime, or is day for the self-controlled. It's like people think that, we're chanting Hare Krishna and vegetarian and doing all this worship, and they go, you guys are lost, you're wasting your human form of life. But then we see them drinking over here in PB and doing all nonsense, and we think they're lost. Just like in 26 Second Avenue, the devotees said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, the people here in New York, they think we're crazy. And Prabhupada said, yeah, that's natural, They think we're crazy and we think they're crazy. But actually the difference is we know they're crazy. And they think we're crazy. So, yeah, he's thinking that he's all together here, the king, but actually it was Jad Bharat. So he was basking in his false ego, the king. He's got his servants carrying him. And, this is the false ego. It's a major a stumbling block. And because of this false ego, the king was suffering. Because of this pride. People have pride and false ego, they suffer. That's one of the major causes of suffering. Just like now we have Christmas coming up. And actually they say that it's one of it's one of the days of the year that people suffer the most. Because, as Balaram was saying last night, it's a day of joy and family gatherings and friends. But if someone's alone, it can be very depressing. Because it is marked as the main day of the year for enjoyment. Family gatherings and partying and feasting. But if you're by yourself, it can be very depressing. So, this is the suffering in the material world. So many different types of suffering. In Kali-yuga, people are so uneducated, so they don't know who they are. Just like you go to a PhD, excuse me, sir, who are you? Well, I'm Dr. Joe Everett, PhD, M.A., D.A.D., D.A.D., dead. You got so many titles, right? But sir, aren't you something beyond that? Nope, that's me. But you ask any new bhakta, who are you? Soul. I'm a soul. You're a new bhakta here. Who are you? Who are you? The body. Our soul says, I'm the body. He's one of our newer bhaktas. So even a child growing up knows and is being taught from Just like this little Saraswati, she was some 3-year-old girl. She'd go up, and she would go up to some man and say, "Excuse me, do you know who Krishna is?" "Who? No, who is Krishna?" "Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead." Prabhupada was so fond of that. Just a little girl being taught properly. This is real education. That we're the spirit soul within the body, and we're servants of Krishna. Like I was distributing books one time at a university, and one professor came to the table. He was a professor of religion. And knowing the nature of universities, so I asked him, do you believe in God? He said, no. Professor of religion doesn't believe in God. Teaching religion, doesn't believe in God. He's an atheist. So I asked him, did you believe in God when you started your studies to be a religion professor? He said, oh yeah. He believed in God before he went to the university. And after he was an atheist. So this is, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, slaughterhouses for the soul. People go to the universities and they learn how to be an atheist. And they learn all kinds of sinful activities, sophisticated sinful activities, so much sinful activities. I was talking to one sannyasi some years back, and I was mentioning that, and he said, oh yeah, when I went to the university, I became so sinful. Before the university, I was kind of a clean kid, but the university, you learn all kinds of sinful activities. So this is full-on Kali-yuga. You go to the university, and you learn how to die spiritually. So, therefore, we have to distribute. Got to distribute these books, give some real education to the people. They learn who they are. They learn who God is. Get an experience with God. It's like last night I was speaking to some people here, and they were unsure whether God existed or not. So I said, well, every day I have an experience with God. You can't say that you have that you don't have an experience of God. What is it? There's not an experience of the non-existence of God. There's no experience of the non-existence, but I have an experience of God. And one of them said, well, what is your experience? It's a good question. What's the experience? It's an exchange, reciprocal exchange of love. That's the experience that we have, especially if you go on book distribution. You get that reciprocation. Of course, not that you don't get it if you don't go on book distribution, but it's concentrated. But yeah, this is an experience that devotees have by chanting Hare Krishna, by serving Krishna. You have a reciprocal exchange with Krishna. So here, in this purport, Prabhupada, he mentions that people are in a slumber. People are sleeping. They don't know who they are. Just like at night, we go to sleep. And Prabhupada was speaking, he said it's kind of like dying. But you forget everything, who you are, when you go to sleep. It's like a subtle death. And then you dream, and then you wake up, but then you wake up to another dream. That I'm this, I'm that, so I'm this, I'm so and so. So this is another dream. So there's a daydream, and there's a night dream. And sometimes the daydream is a nightmare also. Sometimes you have nightmares when you're sleeping. Sometimes you have nightmares when you're awake too. That happens also. So this process of Krishna consciousness is meant to wake people up from this slumber. Just like the king, he's dreaming here. He's a king. And that those are his servants. It's a dream. It's temporary. What is it? What is a dream? What is the definition of a dream? It's temporary. And it's illusory. Right? These are the main definitions of a dream. Temporary and illusory. So, to be in a position of a king, it's temporary and it's illusory. So, this knowledge is so important. And you learn, the best way to learn actually, is by hearing. Is by hearing. And the next best way to learn is by experience. And Radhanath Swami said that, and a fool, he knows by no other way than by experience. But the most intelligent, he learns by hearing. So therefore, it's so important that we hear. Shravanam, that's the first one. Shravanam, we have to hear again and again, and again and again, and again and again. And hopefully, eventually, it's going to sink into our dull skull, sink in, and we're going to actually understand what we're hearing. To hear and then to understand also. It's not easy. Now, some people, they don't want to wake up from the slumber. It's like Prabhupada said about preaching to the Hindus. It's more difficult to wake up a person who's pretending to sleep than it is for someone who's actually sleeping. And that's what the Hindus are. They're pretending to sleep. Yeah. They know what's important, serving Krishna. But they come here, especially they come here to forget. But ironically, so many Hindus come here and they hear about Krishna. They get a book, from a devotee, a Western devotee, and they become devotees. It's amazing how much that happens. Just like that amazing story of this man, he got Hindu, he got a book from a devotee and put it in his house, put it in the library, Bhagavad Gita, sat there for 10 years, just sat there. And then his wife got pregnant. What to do? Just laying around the house. What am I going to do? So then she saw the Bhagavad Gita. Well, let me read the Bhagavad Gita. Never read it before. Like I tell the Hindus when I distribute books to them, I tell them, it's amazing. 99% of the Hindus I speak to, they haven't read the Bhagavad Gita. But they all have it. Everybody has it, but no one reads it. And they practically, without exception, they always say, yep, I got it, and I haven't read it either. Then I tell them, I lost count how many times I've read it. It's so good. It's such a great book, I lost count. I've read it so many times. And the first time I read it in 7 days. And they're a lot of times they're a little ashamed. They go, all right. And this is the one you should read, because this is the one that convinced us, Malechas and Yavanas, to serve Krishna, to give our life to Krishna. So many other Bhagavad Gitas came to the West, but nobody became a devotee of Krishna. But this Bhagavad Gita by HG Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he convinced us, not only here in America, all over Europe, Africa, South America, all over the world. And they're like, wow, okay, yeah. They know about ISKCON. It's because of this great personality here, Prabhupada, given the Bhagavad Gita as it is. So a lot of times they're inspired and take a Bhagavad Gita. Hopefully they read it. But this is, this is the goal of life, is to understand that we're the eternal servants of Krishna. We're not master. Here it's mentioned that Prabhupada mentions in the purport here, Ekala Ishvara Krishna Arasabha Britya, that there's only one master, and everyone else is Britya, means servant. There's one Ekala Ishvara, there's one supreme controller, one supreme master, Krishna, and we're all the servants, and he's the boss. You know, people in this material world, they don't want to be the servant. You know, if you give them a choice, hey, you want to be the servant in a company, or do you want to be the boss? Everybody wants to be the boss, right? But there's only one boss, Kartam Isha. Kartam Isha means the boss. He's the boss of everyone, superior to everyone, yeah. Except for Radharani. Yeah. And the gopis. They control Krishna. How? By their love. Otherwise, Krishna can't be controlled. Yeah. So yeah, he's the supreme master, and we're trying to become servants of Krishna. And the best service we can do is Yaidang Paramanguyang Mad Bhakte Sabadhasyasi Bhaktim Mayam Param Kridva Mamivaisya Yasangsaya. Krishna says that anybody who is preaching this message of Bhagavad Gita is very dear to me, and there'll never be anyone more dear to me. So this is Krishna's soft spot. He loves it when devotees go out and give this message to others. Because this is what is most needed. As Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, the only lack in society is Krishna consciousness. So we're trying to fill that lack, that black hole, that lack, big lack of what is most important, what is necessary. It's a necessity in the human form of life, is to hear about Krishna. Not an option. Everybody needs to hear about Krishna. Prabhupada was speaking to one leading book distributor. So he asked this leading book distributor, what is the meaning of book distribution? What does it mean to distribute books? And he was a little hesitant to say something because he might say something wrong, so he just said, I don't know, Prabhupada. Play it safely, you know. Prabhupada said it means to give knowledge. Not just knowledge, but absolute, the highest knowledge. It's like Krishna says, Raja Vidya, the king of education. Raja Vidya, the most secret of all secrets. Yeah. So this is the highest knowledge. So that's what book distribution means, to give knowledge, the highest knowledge, the knowledge which is most needed in society. Because people don't have this knowledge, they're just wallowing in ignorance, just wasting the human form of life. So it's a great service, actually, this book distribution. And some people will benefit, will actually read the book and appreciate it. I met one guy yesterday. I offered the Bhagavad Gita to him. He said, yeah, I have the Bhagavad Gita. Oh, here, check this one out. Yeah, I got that one too. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1. Well, you have this one here? Yep, got that one too. Got them all. Nice guy. But I said, well, why don't you take a Bhagavad Gita and give it to someone as a Christmas present? He said, all right, I'll do that. Good idea. He gave a nice donation. So people are reading these books. People are chanting. I met one person, he's chanting 1 round a day. Didn't know there was a temple. Lives in San Diego. Didn't know there's a temple here. Yeah. So we don't know who's reading, who's chanting. But the one thing we do know is Krishna's pleased by this. So we have to do. We're trying to be devotees of Krishna. So if we're trying to be devotees of Krishna, we should do what is pleasing to Krishna. Then the more we do that, the closer we get to Krishna. I was distributing books one time in the U of F, University of Florida, distributing the Bhagavad Gita, and he said, well, I don't believe in God. I don't believe in the soul. If I don't see it, I don't believe it exists. So I said, well, you know, no one has ever seen the atom. No one has ever seen it. But there is a process by which one can understand the atom exists. He said, yeah, he was actually a physics student. He said, yeah, I'm aware of that. So similarly, there's a process by which you can understand God exists and the soul exists. Just as you can't see the atom, you can't see God. Now, you can't see the soul. But by this process, eventually, you can actually see God. But you got to get purified. And this process is all about getting purified. And when you're completely pure, you develop your love for God, then you could see God. Yeah. Just when you have these cataracts, you just have to remove the cataracts. And then you could see. I said, all right, that sounds good. In Bhagavad Gita. Another time I talked to a guy, I offered the book to him. He said, no, I'm an atheist. I said, well, you know something? Then this book is for you. You're going to like it. Really? It's for me? Yeah, it's made for you. All right. He gave a donation. Couldn't believe it. Yeah, I didn't think that'd work, but it worked. So there's one devotee, Ananta Shanti, who was the first devotee in Russia, who Prabhupada spoke to him for 2 days. Most intense preaching Prabhupada ever did to one person. And he left the Bhagavad Gita with this person. And it's interesting, Prabhupada, as he was preaching to him, Prabhupada was amazed. He was catching it. He was really catching it. So then when Prabhupada and Syamasundar were leaving, he said, you know, in order for this, I mean, I'm gonna preach what you've told me, but I'm gonna need some association. I don't have anybody here. If you could send me a Western woman I could marry, then I'd have some association, we could preach. So Prabhupada went to France, and there was one Mataji there, and she prayed to Krishna, Krishna, please, have Prabhupada offer a service to me that is very difficult, and immediately I'll say yes. She didn't want to get married. So Prabhupada called her in and said, we need a wife for this devotee in Russia. He's the only devotee in Russia. He needs some association. Will you marry him? And she immediately said, yes. But she had no desire at all to go to Russia. But Krishna just arranged that, very difficult surrender for her. Yeah, 73 or something, what's her name? Manda Lakini or something like that. Something like that. So she went to Russia, and she said to him, she said, generally householders, they have children. But you'd only try to have a child if you're a pure devotee. So we should first be pure devotees. She's such a transcendental lady. So then he was preaching, and she was impressed with his preaching techniques. He's a very intelligent guy. He would go to the coffee shops, and he would open up the book, and to the pictures and to the Sanskrit, and people would walk by and say, "What do you have there? What's that?" And he would say, "Have a seat. Let me tell you." And he would preach to these people for hours sometimes, and they would become devotees. This is how it began. Because it's Russia, communist Russia. You can't distribute books. You can't go out, and you can't no Harinam, nothing. So this is how he was preaching, and he he brought a lot of devotees to Krishna consciousness by that preaching. In coffee shops, have a seat. Let me tell you about it. And another way is he would, because in Russia at that time, and it still is, science is God. So he started a scientific institute to study mantras. To study mantras, because even at that time, actually, people were very interested in India. You know, just like when Prabhupada went and visited that professor Kowalski, what's his name? Kataski. He said, "Yeah, we translated the Mahabharata and the Puranas, and the books were gone so quickly we had to reprint." And Prabhupada was like impressed. So they know about mantras and meditation. So he would study the mantra with animals, with plants, and with people. So this is the only place in Russia where devotees could go and chant japa legally. Because it's an institute, it's a scientific institute studying mantras. So they would just go there and chant japa. And another way he would attract people, or he was actually very simple-hearted. So he would offer flowers to Krishna, and he would go out to the street or the public areas where people were, and he would say, "Here, this is a very fragrant flower. Smell this flower, because it's prasadam that gets some benefit. You know, maybe human form in the next life, or maybe this life that gets some opportunity to hear about Krishna." So that was another way he was bringing Krishna into people's lives. And he made a lot of devotees. So many devotees. It's amazing. I met him when I was in Lithuania. It's amazing that he survived. They were giving him so many drugs when he was in prison, you know, just to destroy his brain. But he survived. Amazing. So, is there any question?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Vijaya Krishna.
May I?
You may.
Thank you very much, Vijay Prabhu. You're very kind. And if I may, I hope you're having a very successful book distribution marathon. By the way, I am. Prabhu, in the translation related to the verse you chose for today, I see that there are temporary masters ordering temporary servants. So my question is, what is the difference between a temporary master ordering his temporary servant and a spiritual master ordering his disciple?
Very good question.
Thank you very much.
The spiritual master is the eternal spiritual master of the disciple. And therefore Prabhupada said, don't make me come back. Get serious in this human form of life, because if you don't, then I have to come back to help you. Very interesting. Yeah, Prabhupada said that. It's like amazing. So, yeah, it's so important that we seriously serve our spiritual master. Yeah. In this way, at the end of this life, we can go back home and not cause our spiritual master to come back again to help us. So, yeah, it's an eternal relationship, not a temporary relationship. I wanted to say something more about book distribution. There was Vaiseshika Prabhu. He's the what do you call it, the general, the commander-in-chief, actually, commander-in-chief of book distribution. So he told the devotees up there in this kind of Silicon Valley that if people don't take a book, don't want to give a donation, just ask for a penny. And anybody will give you some change. And quite often, actually I do this sometimes, and quite often they'll give you, $5. Well, I'll give you something, They give some change at least, or, give you $1 or $2 or $5 or something. So this one devotee was at a house and knocked on the door, and the man saw that he had the Bhagavad Gita, and he said, and the devotee explained a little bit, and he said, well, I'm not that interested. And I don't want to give a donation. So the devotee said, well, can you give a penny? He said, all right, I'll give you a penny. I'll give you a penny for this book. Big Bhagavad Gita. So he goes up in his office, and he's looking in the drawer for a penny. And his wife comes in, and she says, what are you doing? I'm looking for a penny for this book. And she got the book from me. She said, this is the Bhagavad Gita. This is the Bhagavad Gita. This is one of the great classics. You're going to give him a penny for Bhagavad Gita, a nice book like this? Don't be so cheap, Give him a nice donation. So he was inspired by it. Gave him $50. The penny principle is good on book distribution. I always ask at least for a penny. I was reminded by Govardhan Prabhu yesterday. The penny principle. Always ask for something. And yeah, it's quite often people they're not interested in the book. And I said, well, would you like to give a donation anyway? All right. One time a guy gave $100. Didn't want the book. And even after he gave the $100, still he wouldn't take a book. So, yeah, always ask for a donation. Yeah, it starts their devotional service. I mean, some of these people, they haven't done devotional service for, oh, God, maybe millions of lifetimes. So they just give a penny. That's something. That's not nothing, right? It's something. So always try to engage in some devotional service. Javita has a comment or a question. Who has the microphone? Okay.
This is a small related principle. With inflation and people, they drop a coin. They don't just pennies. You'll see nickels and things on the ground. They don't even bother to pick them up.
Yeah.
But if you pick it up, then the person who dropped it, and you put it in there, then that's the beginning of their devotional service, even without knowing. It counts.
Agyata Sukriti.
Yeah, so that's interesting too. And if I may make one little addendum to your answer about this, and it's a good answer and everything.
Yeah.
I was thinking, because Prabhupada refers to that verse in the purport, Ekale Ishvara Krishna Ar Sababhrita, that Krishna is the only master and all others are his servants. So the bona fide spiritual master is simply Krishna's representative. He's not he's not saying you got to serve me. He's engaging people in serving Krishna. So whenever he orders the disciple, that's a bona fide, it's coming from Krishna, basically. So therefore, the principle doesn't pertain there that sometime later, then you'll be the master and he'll be the servant. That's because in the material, everything is always in flux. But when you come to Krishna, everything is not in flux. He's eternally the master, and we're eternally the servant. So because of that, there's a tremendous qualitative difference there. And the spiritual master's order is always.
Yeah, thank you for that. But it's very interesting. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when Prabhupada would pay obeisances to him, he would say, Dasos me, I'm your servant. Did he say that to everybody also that paid obeisances to him? I'm not sure, but at least to Prabhupada we know that. Dasos, I'm your servant. So even the spiritual master is so humble that he will, say, well, I'm your servant. You're my disciple, but I'm your servant. And the spiritual master, he's also serving the disciple. He's bringing him closer to Krishna. So this is also the service that the spiritual master is doing for the disciple. It's like it's a reciprocal thing.
And one final comment on that. There's a verse which unfortunately I don't know, where it says that Krishna becomes the servant of his servant. And we saw with Arjuna how he does that, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So even there, Krishna can, you know, voluntarily.
He was a messenger.
Yeah, chariot
Yeah.
driver. You know.
Yeah, chariot driver. It's an Uber driver. Yeah. You know, Krishna is very humble. He wants to serve his devotees. Just like devotees want to serve Krishna so much, Krishna wants to serve his devotees so much. This is love. You know? This is real love, service. Is that okay, Vijay Krishna?
Yeah, yes. Again, better than okay. Spectacular answers to my question. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I hope you have a great marathon, Vijay Krishna.
Yes, I'm having it. I'm surprised. Everything is going so nicely, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Hari Bo. Okay, Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.